New Radio Sports Network and 1041 WRLU. Good morning. I'm Tim Coles, and each and every week we are joined by the head coach of the Green Bay Gamblers, Pat Mikesch, as we do the show. And Coach, obviously last week, not exactly the results that you wanted out of your team with losses at Chicago and also at Madison.
Madison in the shootout there.
Yep. And I drew a blank, I'll admit, right there. So not the results that you wanted, but what were maybe some of the things that you were able to take away from those losses on a positive note?
Well, I mean, on a positive note, I mean, our Aaron Randazzo had another very strong weekend. He came in for Elias on Friday night for the third period and shut out the Chicago team that period, and then had a very solid effort again in Madison. In a game that ends up being a 2-2 tie, we lose the shootout, but both goalies again were very strong, and it was a up and down game with a lot of chances, but the goalies were the stars of the game for sure.
And with those losses, how does that kind of impact maybe the mood on the bus? Obviously, I know that for the most part, your kids are going to sleep almost immediately just because it's late at night, they're exhausted from playing hard, but does that kind of take away from the enthusiasm a little bit as you're traveling?
Yeah, I mean, I think we feel like we let one slip away in Madison on Saturday night, a game that we did have the lead. So, but I think, we want it just to be learning lessons, especially this time of the year. If you're going to win on the road, it's going to be a 60-minute effort. And it was in both games, I just thought we had lapses where we weren't as good as you need to be. And so it's an opportunity to learn from it, opportunity to develop.
You mentioned at the top, Aaron Randazzo had a good weekend. Elias had a rough go of things against Chicago, and he's had a couple games like that, but he's a young goaltender. What are some of the things that you're telling him just to keep his confidence up?
Well, I talked to him after that game on Friday, and we weren't good enough in front of him. The opportunities we were giving up to that talented Chicago team were too point blank and too prime scoring areas, and so we needed to be cleaner in front of them. And for him, it's an opportunity to learn, how to settle into a game like that where, maybe he doesn't get those first couple stops and just calming himself a little bit.
And how hard is that, especially with, you can kind of run up and down the whole roster just because of how young they are. How do you kind of approach that from almost like a mental skills ability to, if things get a little bit rough, how to turn that into a positive moving in the right direction?
Well, I think a forward or a defenseman, it's a little bit easier for them to, just rely on their teammates and, to simplify their game and get back acclimated. They're all going to make mistakes. We all know that. And so, but they have to grow up in this league. And for a goalie, it's a high exposure position. And, when Mason Crosby isn't hitting his field goals, it gets exposed. And so we're doing that with a 16-year-old goalie that is going to have some nights where, it doesn't go his way, but if we've had some good performances in front of him, but this was not a good one as far as the amount of chances we were giving up.
And as more things come to the Rush Center, you're at the Cornerstone right now in De Pere. And how has that transition been so far? Because obviously, even though we covered last week that the rink size is about the same, but obviously there's some comforts of the Rush Center that aren't available to you now.
Well, the convenience of having the players around here all afternoon after practice and being able to get that video in with them and use actual TV screens rather than just the computer monitors that we use when we do the individual video with them there. There's little things that way that, are out of sorts. But the practices are all the same. We have the ice for as long as we need it, and we're able to work through things. So it's more of that one-on-one time that we might get with the players post-practice or even pre-practice that over there it's just not quite as convenient.
Now this weekend you will head to Cedar Rapids, and that was a team that we didn't get to see much last year at all. And what do we know about the Cedar Rapids team?
Well, we had a good game against them here, our first game at the Resch, and they're now playing a better brand of hockey. I think Coach Carlson's got his group very strong in transition. We're watching them here and they skate and they're going to push that pace. And, I think the first time we played them, we kind of exposed them with our speed. And so it'll be interesting to see where that's at now. And are we able to get that same type of transition in their building, which is always kind of a fun place to play. It's loud and there's probably a few extra cowbells in that building all the time. So trying to prepare our guys for, we're playing 2 games, but we need to have a great first period is the most important thing.
Wasn't that one of the places we discussed last year where you said I don't want to say you have nightmares, but I remember the cowbell thing being almost an itch in your giddy up, if you will.
I would say Waterloo is worse for me, but Cedar Rapids is right there. It's great that their fans support that way. But it seems like anytime I want to say something, they know to ring their cowbells. So the players can't hear anything I'm saying anyway. So it's a lot of times I'm just talking to myself.
Do you get, because obviously the Gambler fans, they got their cowbells as too. Do you kind of almost, especially after a weekend against Cedar Rapids, you almost get kind of a post-traumatic stress disorder reaction to it? Just like, oh no, okay, no, these are good cowbells. These are good cowbells.
Yeah, no, and I think the smaller building, like obviously we love our fans but we have the bigger building where they're celebrating with their cowbells, but like in Cedar Rapids, it's just a constant ringing of cowbells for the entire game, whether it's good or bad or anything that's going on. It's noise making is what it is, and it's very effective in both those buildings.
I can just imagine you trying to go to sleep after one of those games in Cedar Rapids. You can still just hear the cowbells ringing.
100%. They're going, and we're always aware of them. So they're doing their military appreciation game this weekend. So I think we're going to be walking into some great road atmosphere, which is great for us. I love it. Like when you go into an environment like that, there's no reason not to be ready to go.
And this will be the first time that you'll be away from the Rush Center for 2 straight games at the same location. We had the home and home against Madison. Obviously, you just came off of a 2-city, 2-game road trip last weekend. Kind of take us through what those types of weekends are like, because we're coming up on the part of the season where it becomes more of the norm.
Yeah, this is a little bit better, like that team building, guys spending each time at the hotel together, things like that, where, last week we play in Chicago, we jump right on a bus, guys climb into their bunks, and then we get to the hotel late and guys are just kind of going to their own rooms. We're going to get back. We'll be able to have a dinner together after that game on Friday night, spend some time, joke around a little bit, and then we'll have all day Saturday kind of hanging out as well.
And going back to the hockey part of things, you were saying that when the Gamblers faced Cedar Rapids earlier this year, that you exposed them a little bit defensively because they didn't know what to do with their speed. Is there something about their game that maybe exposed you a little bit?
Well, they were very resilient in that game, and we had the big first period. I think it was 5 goals, and Jackson Hallam had the 4-goal night, and so it was we pushed that pace early, but then they were very resilient and made it into a 6-3, I think was the final. And so it was a good response by them. They played their full 60 minutes. So, that's probably the one thing I'm looking at with their team is they kind of keep on you. They're very consistent with their pressure points. And so we're going to need that 60 minutes. And that's what we've talked about as a group this week is on the road, there's just no easy game. You've got to be prepared. And if you have lapses, you're probably going to end up losing because, the home team's going to get their one bounce. And so, you got to be prepared for that as a road team and take advantage of, good spurts in your own game to score those goals.
Well, and you mentioned too, as well, I mean, you score 5 goals against the team in a single game. Well, not even just a single game in a single period. I'm sure that's something that coaches, whether it happens to you or you do it to some other coach, there's almost like an ad, like we can't let that happen again because you do get multiple cracks at these teams.
Yeah, they're good. They're a very well coached team. They're going to be prepared and probably a little bit of salt in the wound from that last game. So I expect an extremely hard push from them early. And, that's all we've talked about this week is, their road. And I've repeated it here, but we need to be prepared and learn how to grind out road games because you're never going to have the game where you get to coast through it. You got to be prepared. If you get up 1 or 2, that home team's going to put even a harder push on you. So it's just being prepared and wanting to win that first period, and then we'll build from there.
How happy are you that you're going to be returning to the Rush Center sooner rather than later?
Yeah, we come back for a great spurt, after this one, just the one game the following weekend, but then we'll have a great Thanksgiving week around here with 3 games. So it's always fun to get back home and kind of, build off of, games then, you kind of get momentum going when you start playing well at home.
Very good. Well, we've been joined by head coach Pat Mikesch once again. No hockey on 104.1 WRLU this weekend, but we'll have hockey back on the radio for you next weekend with Tobin Meyer on the call. Coach, good luck this weekend in Cedar Rapids, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tim.
For the New Radio Sports Network, I'm Tim Coles.